Afrobeats Intelligence podcast.
Afrobeats Intelligence, democratizing African music.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you again. Every time I get to see you, you always have this smile about you. It's almost feels shy. Like, oh my God.
Me shy.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are, but you have a shy smile.
Okay. If you say so.
You've never been told that before.
Actually, no.
Okay. You haven't. Well, when people describe how you smile, what do they say? Like the most repetitive or recurrent review of your smile?
Actually, the most recurrent review of my smile is that I have a nice smile and I should smile more.
So they say you should smile more.
Yeah, but like I don't smile enough. Like,
do you think you don't smile enough? Because for me, you're always smiling. Maybe I meet you in real life. Maybe that's why.
I don't know, man. Maybe I don't smile enough in pictures. I think that's what it is. Because people get to see more pictures of me than me in real life. So maybe they build a perception of that I should smile more because of the pictures.
Well, but were you smiling when you started working on this album?
No, not really, no.
Why? What was the mood?
Well, when I was making this album, I'd say the mood was reality.
Okay.
You know, I think smiling all the time would be nice.
Yeah.
But it's not realistic to smile all the time because things that make you smile don't happen all the time. There are always, I would say moments of smiling, moments of not smiling, moments of reality, moments of positive and negative emotions that happen to a person. So I would say making music about just the positives is not realistic, especially for someone like me. I feel like if I'm making art, it has to represent both the positives and the negatives for it to be authentic.
But then you exist in an industry where what is generally being sold, like the generality of what's being sold by the music, by the musicians, by the stories they tell, the lifestyle you guys, but not they. You're part of them. See me. The stories you and your peers portray, it leans wholly towards happiness, hedonism, escapism, and in all of those spaces, there's always smiles. There's always smiles. There's always the enjoyment of life, the exploitation of pleasure, and so it's interesting to hear this.
Well, I cannot speak for everyone.
Yeah.
First of all, I can only speak for myself. Yeah. I cannot really tell you what space another artist was in when they were making their music. But one thing I'll tell you is, as far as escapism goes, I mean, there was fuel scarcity last month.
True.
For example, people had to queue. Life was very uncomfortable for the average Nigerian.
True.
Right? And I would say we've had moments like this a lot in our experience over the past, let's say, 5 years. In fact, since I was born, basically. But let me just speak for the past 5 years. As a Lagosian, you know what it meant to be a Lagosian for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
If you did not have something to make you happy, it would have probably been a much more difficult experience. Like, if you didn't have skit makers making funny skits, if you didn't have musicians making music, if you didn't go to the club a couple of times, craze for don't kill you by now, if you know what I'm saying. So I'd say if I make a song that's about, if I make a song that makes you smile, right? That song probably came from an isolated incident, like a specific moment that made me smile.
Yeah.
And I put that into a song. Even if, let's say, I released that song 7 months later.
Yeah.
And the time I released it, I was not necessarily smiling. It does not invalidate the fact that that song came from a time I was smiling.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And also reverse is the case. So I see music as diary entries. As an artist, I'm basically capturing moments in my life. Like, if an album is made over a period of 1 year, the album is basically a summary of 1 year of the artist's life. A lot of things can happen in 1 year. There are ups, there are downs, there are in-betweens. There are moments of sanity, moments of insanity.
True.
There's all kinds of stuff. So basically, that is what my album is. It's a diary entry of like the past 2 years of my life. Oh. Today is Sad Romance's 2nd anniversary. Rather yesterday.
Congratulations.
Man. Thanks. Congrats. So, it's basically like a diary update of my life over the past 2 years, what has been happening, what I've been going through. I'm not as vocal as most people are in terms of my private life.
Yeah.
I don't talk very much on social media. I talk sometimes, but I don't really give people updates on everything going on. Hey guys, this just happened in my life. This just happened in my life. Sometimes I do that, but not as much, especially about sensitive things. I prefer to say it through the music.
Do you feel overexposed if you share a lot more?
I look at it like a thing of necessity. Do I have to share everything is the real question. Like, if I'm going through stuff that is very deep and very personal, is it necessarily anybody's business? Where do you draw the line between what's their business and what's not their business? There are just certain things I feel I could share, but I don't have to share.
But then, how does that now pile up against the requirement now? Because your work is very subjective. Your work, I think of you as a broadcaster of some sort. So you broadcast your art, you give it to people. These people love it so much that they begin to build. And some of them might be parasocial, but they feel a certain connection to you. Yeah. And in this age where access and this age of hyper-information, where access and the flow of information, aka content, we've commodified all our moments in life and consciousness into content. Yeah. People would expect that for someone whose work or livelihood is very connected to sharing, that there's just going to be, a constant flow of everything.
Well, that's one way to look at it. I think the same way music is a diary entry, I think for some people, posting or tweeting is also like a diary entry.
I tweet a lot.
Yeah, I would say I used to tweet a lot too. But I don't know. I feel like for me, I came to a point in my life where life got so real. Yeah. Like, let's say, okay, in the beginning of my career, let's say I used to tweet, let's say I used to tweet 10 times a week. I realized that the more I progressed and the more time kind of progressed and the more real life got, the less I could actually talk about it in real time. Like I actually needed time to process certain things before I could even talk about them. You know what I mean? I found myself in this position. So it's kind of more difficult for me to just be a constant flow of information before even processing it myself. I feel before I can disseminate some information, I have to even process it myself and understand it myself before I can put it into a form that can be consumed by people.
And so you believe the music you drop is a product of that process.
Exactly.
So that makes it your diary entry then.
Basically. It's like let's say all the things I don't tweet about.
Yeah.
You can listen to the album and have an idea of those things instead.
The last record you did with Olamide, what were you trying to tell us?
So
that you're dealing with
Okay, so how I'll put it is this. Some of my songs are like, I'd say it's like my listeners eavesdropping into a dialogue.
Yeah.
Some songs are like me directly talking to my listeners, but some of them are like more of you eavesdropping into a dialogue. So a song like Wahala, for instance, is like my listeners eavesdropping into a dialogue between me and a woman.
Yeah.
Basically, a good number of my songs, I would say, take that structure. So it's not really like I'm talking to the person listening. It's I'm talking to someone and you happen to be listening to the conversation.
True.
Type shit.
It's a lot like podcasting.
Something like that. Basically, people listening to these podcasts are eavesdropping on a conversation we're having. I may or may not be directly talking to them.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's the beauty of certain things. Certain things is like, it doesn't have to always be direct. It's like a thing of observing. Like sometimes you like to observe certain people exist and do their thing and live their life for it to look like you're not even there. Like watching a reality show, the beauty of it is that the people you're watching don't really know you're watching or don't really act like you're watching.
They don't see you watching.
They don't see you watching. They're just existing as if you are not watching. If they were conscious that you were watching, they would probably act different. Or they will say something different, and that like removes the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So like for me, when I'm making music, 90% of the time, I may not even know for sure that song will be on my album. I'm just vibing. I'm just writing diary entries. If I release an album that has 11 songs, I probably made 60 songs or 100 songs.
Yeah.
Then chose 11. You know, that kind of thing. So it's like, of all the diary entries, what's the average of the entries that describes most accurately where I am in my life right now and in my experience? So that's basically my process. You know, it's a very personal process. It's a very privacy invading process. Yeah. But I think that's what makes it's like a reality show. That's what makes it pleasurable. The fact that it's privacy invading at the same time as it's public. Do you get?
Well, I get you. I said the what's that word? It's not irony of it. Where something is private, yet still public.
It's actually ironic.
Yeah, it's ironic. Yeah. It's like, you know, this guy, Schrodinger. This scientist who built the system where there's a cat in a box, but the cat also appears to not be in a box. It's the basis for a lot of calculations, a lot of things in mathematics. But when it flipped over into pop culture, when something is either it's in and out or either in or out, then that thing is now we can say Schrodinger's cast. Something like, we call this a Schrodinger's podcast. Would it be released? Is it private? Or it's both at the same time? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, I think for most authentic pieces of art, that's what it really is. Except, of course, it's like a very manufactured piece of art, which exists a lot. Like, you know, where a song is created and somebody is told to sing this song. Yeah. We wrote this song for you. Just sing it. It's like, in a case like that is like manufactured art. It's like, I would see the artist as more of an actor than an artist.
Or more of a channel.
Or more of a channel, you know, because if you are not making music or making art about your experience, then you're an actor. An actor is basically playing a character that is not you. Like, you know, if Arnold Schwarzenegger is Terminator,
he's not a robot.
Then he's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's Terminator for the few hours that you're watching that screen. You're watching Terminator. You're watching an actor. But with music, it's different because music is... We are not actors. we're technically not actors. We're making music about our lives, our actual lives. Of course, I know some people are actors, but not me though. We're making music about our actual lives and experiences, and we are playing the characters that we are in real life.
So you're saying you don't feel comfortable expressing the words or the songs of another person?
Not the most comfortable. I would say I'm very open to writing with people. Like, if, to me, the most logical way songwriting works is co-writing.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone is different. Some artists can't write. Some can write. Some need a bit of help. Some need a bit of assistance, which is perfectly fine. But like, personally, I would not be very, keen on just taking a ready-made song and singing it exactly as it was, because, all the melodies, all the lyrics, the lines, they came from somewhere. And if I feel that doesn't represent me and where I'm coming from, it's going to be very difficult for me to just sing the song, because every line has to mean something. Every line has to, I don't know, like, it has to represent something, or else it's just lines.
But that's invariance. What you just said, this your posture, it's invariance with a lot of the efficiency message within the music industry. Hey, and it also comes up against like commercial capitalism in music. So everyone says, hey, we want the best product. Not to diss on the artist, but if we can find a way to, outsource the creativity and still pass it through this channel, who's our artist, our mascot, our avatar, and we can still sell a convincing story with it and get the end goal, which is more money, growth, profit for everyone, then it works. So yeah, it's invariance, which is very surprising for me, because right now we're in a system, especially with since Afrobeats to the world arrived, or since we got into that era, we've adopted a few practices, global standardized practices. We have things like Writers Camp now. We even have boutique services that provide specifically creativity on its own, writers, producers, everybody, and they just create, and people go through that process.
Yeah.
You don't come up against, especially on your back end, you don't come up against like what I call this resistance to creating solo to a certain degree.
So it's like you said, it's invariance, but don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm 100% for collaboration.
Yeah.
100%. Like, my album was not just me in a room alone making the whole album. Like, I worked with a certain number of people, backup vocalists, instrumentalists, producers, I'm a producer myself, but I don't produce all my songs.
Yeah.
Even the ones I produce, sometimes I co-produce.
Yeah.
I feel like another producer can contribute something to make this better. I'm 100% for that. I just feel sometimes, there should be balance still, because there are some situations where a literal song is created without an artist even being present in the room. Yeah. About an experience that maybe the artist doesn't even relate to. And, the artist is just told to sing that record. I don't know about other people, but I am not the biggest believer of that paradigm, personally, because I just feel like, like you said, we have this product and this artist is an avatar. Mm-hmm. Should an artist really be an avatar is the question,
No, of course not.
Yeah, so it's like, I would say that's the difference between being a musician and being an actor is, you could act as a musician, but you're literally playing a character that is you in real life.
True.
Your whole life. You're not just playing it for like the 1 hour that the movie is on screen. Like, CKay is a character that is a real person, and exists. After this interview, I'm still the character.
Yeah.
After this album, I'm still the character. Before this album, I was still the character. There's no like off screen per se. It's not like I am one person on screen, I'm another person off the screen.
When the lights, the cameras, the podcast mics, when they go off, you still have to exist as CKay.
Exactly.
Even in your privacy.
Exactly. It's just like I'll say sometimes how I'll put it is, if I'm making a song about a specific moment, or let's say, for instance, I'm singing about a girl, and like I said, my listeners are eavesdropping on a dialogue, and let's say that's a heartbreak song. It doesn't necessarily mean on a podcast I have to be heartbroken too. Do you understand? Or like if I was... Okay. If I made a honey song, I should be honey on a podcast.
Yeah, like, you freak. Bring it.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, there should be, I won't call it on and off moments, but it's just like there are situational songs.
Yeah.
That in that moment, you're not necessarily playing a character. You're just in a certain zone. Yeah. On stage, it's much easier to recreate that zone on stage. That's why a performance is a lot more than just singing. It's like you emoting the song.
Yeah.
But aside that, you are literally the same person. You are the same character. So that's why I just feel, a musician should have a certain level of responsibility as far as the narrative and what you are actually singing in the songs. But then everyone is different. Don't get me wrong. There are many artists who have, had songs written for them their whole careers and it's worked for them. Yeah. And some that it hasn't worked for them. I guess different strokes for different folks.
True. Yeah. So talking about your diary entry for this one, the last 2 years have been whirlwind for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you've done a lot and you continue to do a lot. Yeah.
A lot.
Yes. Yes, you have. You have. And I'm just wondering, I know you come from I know you're a creator's creator. You create. It's the lifeblood of what you do. But what happens when your success, I wouldn't say it prevents you from, but when your success or the other things that come with success, maybe the incessant traveling, the need to, in quotes, network. Like you have to show up at places, you have to make appearances, you have to be CKay on that level. How does that impact that creative streak? Because now you barely even have the presence of mind because everyone's pulling you in multiple directions. So for someone who tries to be a purist as much as they can and sticks to the fundamentals of artist has an experience, artist expresses it through music, where would you find that presence of mind, that solitude to still create at that level?
Yeah, for me, it's like, I consider myself an introvert naturally, but like I can be an extrovert on demand.
You got a switch?
Oh, definitely. I have a switch. So like, obviously, if I'm in a public space and I have to network, like you said, I know how to network. I know how to open myself up and have conversations. It's I'd say it's a skill that I've, honed for a while, But I find it difficult to do both at the same time, to do that and create at the same time. That's why most times when I want to create, I basically disappear to create because I cannot be giving energy and, appearing in places and also tapping into my innermost self at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to do both at the same time. So for me, I like to just zone out and create. Like I like to, most times when I'm creating, I look like a homeless person. Like very few people have seen me in that state. My manager sees me in that state a lot. But basically when I'm creating, I don't even care much about my physical appearance.
Yeah.
That's how deep I go into the process. Like, I've been
So you
looking
just
like a
walk-
homeless person.
You use deodorant stuff.
Oh, of course. Most definitely. I use that. But like, I just I really go in.
Yeah.
I tap into what's actually happening in my life. Like, there's this thing called the theory of relativity. Basically, that's what as Albert Einstein is known for.
Yeah, theory of relativity.
But basically, many people don't really know that that's what this is. But basically, the special theory of relativity, what he's basically saying in a nutshell is that he was basically talking about time travel.
Yeah.
But many people don't know this, but he basically proved time travel. So he's basically saying if you went on a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
And you traveled at the speed of light for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like if you were counting 10 years on that spaceship.
Yeah.
And you came back to Earth, basically you find out that 100 years had passed on Earth. So that's indirectly time travel.
True.
It's not like you entered a portal and traveled 100 years, but it's just like 10 years on that timeline is 100 years on this timeline.
True.
So like I find myself in that kind of situation sometimes. Like over the past 3 to 4 years, I was traveling a lot. Like I would say me not traveling was more like the anomaly. Like I would have situations where I would travel from one country to another, always on stage, always doing this, always doing that, doing interviews. And I actually realized that many times I'll come back to Nigeria and come back to my main quest. When in video games there's main quest and side quest.
Yeah.
So when I come back to the main timeline, I realize that so much has changed. Like when I'm talking to my mom or my dad, I realize that there's so many updates, like so many things that have happened that I didn't realize had happened because I was, on this spaceship, for 10 years, and I come back and see that 100 years have passed.
Does it move that fast on the road?
It does. It actually does. Like, you don't realize it until you come back to the main quest. I'm trying to explain this with analogies so that you kind of understand where I'm coming from.
I get you.
But that's kind of how it feels. Like, it feels like, you're existing in so many timelines at the same time. I feel creating in that zone is very difficult. And I feel like whatever you create in that vibe it's usually not very accurate, because you're not really existing in a main timeline. You're in so many timelines. So
in a sense, you're not present.
Exactly. So for me, I like to really zone out from all that when I'm creating, which is what I did on this album.
And when you pop back out of creativity, you still see the world. The world is still waiting for you to jump back into that faster world, that other timeline.
Yeah.
And you just, you already say you have your switch.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then talking about emotions, you showed some emotion on social media recently. Yeah, you spoke about I like to think about your place in the game and your impact in the game. And I see a lot of people try to dispute the things you shared. I don't dispute them because I followed your story for a while. I know how much your creativity has impacted on the back end, even the front end, yes, but also on the back end, how much it has impacted. How do you feel knowing that the world does not get the full picture, or rather the world seems to not get the full picture of your influence?
Well, I think the world has to always be educated of things. You know, most times if you don't explain things to people, the reason we have schools and we have education is because there are certain things that need to be taught to people because they are true and they need to be known. And if no one comes to teach them, they will probably never know those things. Like if no one taught you physics or biology or chemistry, it doesn't mean biology or chemistry doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that, the law of conservation of energy, all those things you learn in textbooks, it doesn't mean they don't exist if you don't know about them. Yeah. That's why you have teachers to tell you, or to tell you the history that in 1960, Nigeria was independent, or to tell you that, pound sterling used to be our official currency. Sure. Like the first day my dad told me that, when he was in school, he would take £2 to do this. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that there was a time that Nigeria was actually using pounds. Yeah. So me not knowing does not invalidate the reality of that. So in terms of my impact, I mean, bro, it's literally the truth.
Yeah.
There was a time in Nigeria when TikTok was not taken seriously.
Yeah.
At all. And we were all there, There were times when there are times when many artists didn't even have TikTok accounts.
True.
Let's start from there, but now that's not the case, because usually people like to wait for evidence of something before they do it.
Yeah.
The reason why many artists who did not have TikTok accounts years ago have it now is because they've seen what it has done for others and they want the same thing for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I also feel it's important to give credit where it's due, and not try to change what is just because of how you feel. Just because you don't like CKay, or you're not the biggest fan of CKay, does not change the reality of what CKay is or what CKay has done, just because of your personal emotions. The truth is the truth. I was one of the first Nigerians on TikTok, pushing music on TikTok. And some of my biggest records have been, in the height of them, they were dismissed as TikTok hits. I mean, anybody who existed on Nigerian social media cannot say that was not the fact. Sure. But then I just found it very interesting how, the narrative started to switch. TikTok hits stopped becoming TikTok hits all of a sudden when other artists started having TikTok hits. I just think it's very interesting. But long story short, the facts are the facts, and the facts can be checked at any time. And I just feel like the facts should be respected regardless of personal, subjective emotions.
True. And then again, this thing about Afro emo, about emoting.
Emo Afrobeats.
Emo, sorry, I switch it in my head, Afro emo, because I've known emo for a while with via hip hop. Yeah, the 2017, 2016, 2017, all of that crew that came up, the Lil Pumps, XXX Tentacion, God bless his soul. Juice WRLD, God bless his soul. Lil Xan, is he still alive? I'll check.
It's crazy how a lot of them are dead now. Yeah,
it's the power of emotions. Yeah, because what those people sold at that time, they sold a very vulnerable expression. Yeah. So you listen to an artist like XXX Tentacion, and he's telling you about his death. In his records, he's singing about his death. He's singing about when he passes. He's singing about trying to die, even. Same as Juice WRLD. Yeah. And somehow, they lost their lives tragically. But it doesn't take away the fact that I do believe what you put into the universe, it hangs around you.
It does. Well, it's crazy because XXX is actually one of my favorite artists of all time.
Me too.
One of. I intend to be alive. Just putting that into the universe so that hangs.
Amen.
But on a more serious note, what you're saying about these artists is true, because these people were being extremely vulnerable, you know. I think what makes a genre of music is a list of things. Number one, the type of instruments you even use in the music and the type of chords that are played in the music. For instance, what makes classical music classical music? What are the elements? Grand piano, violins, cellos, bassoon, tuba, harps, blah, blah, blah. What makes rock music rock music? Distorted electric guitars, energy, high energy, leather jackets, blah, 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 blah. In addition to genres, there are also cultures. Hip-hop culture, in addition to the music, there is a culture and there's like a way of dressing and, a common subject matter that follows that genre. So with emo music, if you dig deep to the roots of emo music was like a subgenre of rock music.
Yeah.
There was heavy metal rock that is like
Bam, 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 bam.
very aggressive.
Yeah, rockers aggressive.
Screaming into the mic.
Invasive.
Invasive. But then there was like a sector of that music that was more touching and heartfelt. Like the singers would sing about heartbreak, usually very poetic as well. They would talk about how, their ex broke their heart and they would go into very specific details of how on Tuesday, the 11th of December, you did this, you sent me that text type shit. Like there's like crazy detail. And you can just tell when you're listening to the songs that, his ex really sent him that text on the 11th of December, Tuesday. So basically...
It comes alive.
It comes alive. So these people were being extremely vulnerable. You had X, Juice WRLD, all these people talking about, like you said, their death and stuff. That's how vulnerable they were. I don't know, maybe to their better judgment, if they didn't talk about their death, maybe they'll be alive today. I don't know.
But who knows?
Who knows, But for me, it's kind of like the same thing. I just feel, going back to the reason why I even do this in the first place, I'm not really trying to be a mascot or like a figurehead. Like, I feel if music is not art, what's the point? Like, if I'm not really doing something that I feel, then what's the point? I might as well work in a bank or do anything else. I feel like being an artist, the beauty of it, being a painter, being a poet, being a musician, whatever it is, the beauty of it comes from expression.
Yeah.
You feeling something. If you experience a heartbreak right now, there is a crazy level of emotions and feelings that come with that. Making a song out of that experience is literally trying to make the whole world feel that heartbreak you felt, or make all the people in the world who are having their heart broken have something to lean on to. Like, when you're heartbroken, you probably listen to a different type of music than when you're not heartbroken.
Sure.
So that's kind of the beauty of it, and the fact that people thousands of kilometers away can listen to that song and connect with it on a different level, even if they've never met you.
Yeah.
They don't know where you're from. They don't know all that. They can just discover the song on the internet and be like, I feel what this guy is talking about because it happened to me.
Sure.
That's the beauty of music. So with my music, I'm very, very vulnerable with my music. And I talk about things that, I probably wouldn't be able to express on an interview accurately. Yeah. Like, I'll be able to express it more with a song with certain chord progressions and all that following it. So going back to emo Afrobeats. Afrobeats exists.
Yeah.
It pre-exists, rather. Let me use that word. Fela Kuti is known as the originator of Afrobeats. And if you talk about
these days, they
elements,
try to use him as, they try to call him a pioneer.
He is a pioneer because, even from my understanding of music and genres, like, I study Fela a lot, personally. Like, I watch a lot of interviews and looking at the significance of what he actually did. Many Nigerians see Fela as the person who was like an activist, who was, criticizing the government and speaking for the pain of the people. But in addition to that, on a musical level, he actually did a very interesting combination of elements musically. He fused jazz, a lot of elements of jazz, saxophones, funk, and he fused it with African rhythms, basically. And that was an interesting thing that nobody had heard before in the time he did it, Obviously, there's Fuji music, traditional Yoruba music, there's traditional Igbo music, traditional Hausa music. But sometimes when you take those elements and fuse it with something from the other side, it makes something very interesting that nobody has heard. So basically with me, my sound is basically fusing Afrobeats with emo music and putting it together. I find it so weird that people find this difficult to understand many times. Like it's so obvious, and the effects of the music can also be seen. Like if you've ever been to any of my shows and I'm playing certain songs, there is a way the atmosphere of the room changes when a certain song comes on. It's different from when a hype song is coming on. When you can literally cut the emotions of the room with a knife when a song is being played, that tells you that all the people in this room are vibrating with this energy at this particular time.
Sure.
The fact that a song that can be made from a freestyle can literally unite the entire world says a lot. It's like basically a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Somebody feeling something in a specific time, and that vibration resonates with millions of people, and it does 1 billion streams. That's to tell you, like, the whole world felt one thing at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the effect of emotions on people. That's the effect of emotional music. It's not really dependent on bragging about, I have $10 million, I'm rich. There's lots of music that thrives off
aspiration,
braggadocio and aspiration, and that's cool. I feel like I'm not really the biggest I'm not the biggest promoter of that. If I say anything about possessions or whatever on a song, I say it because that's actually the case. But most of my music is actually founded on emotions and experiences and stuff that actually happened to me. And my music thrives off that.
What's the emotion on a record like Egweji with a wriggling bomb in your face?
Egweji is it's so many things at once, because Egweji is one of those dialogue records too.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's like the audience eavesdropping on a dialogue, but then the instrumentals come with a very different energy,
Yeah.
I personally heard it and I was the first time Jason, played me the vibe, I was like, wow. Me being traditionally Igbo, that flute and the scale it was played on really, really connected with me on a very deep level, The thing about traditional instruments sometimes is they follow very unorthodox, set of rules in terms of like the key. And Oja has only 4 holes and has a very limited number of notes that can be played on it. Yeah. But the way it's played can be very, very interesting, and to a European ear that is very stuck on the conventions of music, it comes across as very unorthodox.
Yeah.
It's the same way if you hear Arabic music or you hear music from any other culture. They always sound very, very different from the orthodox stuff.
Yeah, because they manipulate it in their very specific ways.
Exactly. So that's basically what it is with Egweji. Egweji is a fusion of that traditional sound with storytelling and emotions of a dialogue between a man and a woman, myself and a woman.
Beautiful. You've referenced the work. You've referenced, even though you haven't called it by name, but you've referenced the work, your work, Love and Nwantiti, that did a number for you, took you from local to global. And now, at this stage, I get a sense that you've found that maybe it's not you doing it. Maybe it's the product of your work or the way your work has, permeated the system. So you get a sense that you have the people outside the country, the people, people in abroad, foreign markets, other cultures, who connect with you on a different level. Then at home, you have a different profile here. So what do you make of that? And do you think there's a way where you can bridge that?
Well, how do you think I'm received in both markets? Let's start from there.
Okay. It does seem like you have a lot more vibrant love when you leave the shores of this place than within the space. You don't get that feeling at all?
Maybe a bit, yeah.
Maybe a bit. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's interesting that that's the case. But how I'll put it is, I am who I am and I am what I am, regardless of what part of the world resonates with it.
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, have you seen this movie on Netflix called Money Heist?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, so that's one of my favorite shows, right?
Yeah.
So my ex put me onto Money Heist the first time I watched it, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was so amazing. But I was doing some reading on Money Heist, and what I discovered was, in the home country it was produced, I think it was made in Spain.
Spain.
If I'm not mistaken.
Spain.
Yeah.
It's Spain.
And when they released it, apparently, I think in like the first year, it didn't do so well.
True.
In Spain.
Yeah, I saw that when I did my study too.
Yeah, it didn't do so well in Spain. So most of the actors of the movie, they kind of gave up hope type shit, like even the producers. But then apparently something led to something, and it started to go crazy in some distant country. I've forgotten what country it was specifically, but it started to go crazy and the whole world was crazy about Money Heist. Myself included. I was part of the whole world.
Yeah.
So I just think it was interesting. I was like, what's wrong with the people in Spain? Like, did they not realize how amazing this was? Like, to me, it was so obvious that why did it take them a whole year to catch up to this? Like, I think this is brilliant television. I think the storyline is brilliant. I think the acting is brilliant. I thought everything was brilliant. But it took their home country a whole year. I don't think that invalidates the brilliance of it.
Yeah.
I just feel maybe there was politics in Spain. You don't know. You don't know the backstory. Maybe there was gatekeepers. I don't know. But we'll never know why in Spain it was never received very well. And I think it's a similar thing in my situation because when I released Nwantiti the first time, when I released CKay the first time, it wasn't even a number one project in Nigeria.
True.
And nobody thought Nwantiti was such an amazing song at first. Like, it's not like I dropped it and the next day somebody told me, man, that song is going to be the biggest song in the world. Trust me, man, that song is fire. Nobody ever walked up to me to tell me that. People knew it was a good song. It was a great song. But nobody in Nigeria at the time felt like this is a historical song type shit.
Yeah.
But about 2 years later, this song literally changed the whole trajectory of Afrobeats. Literally. I would say that was it was a defining moment for Afrobeats because in addition to the sound of the song and the project at large, like, the sonics, the innovation of it all, it's also like ushered in, I would say, a change in approach for the market. Like, everybody started to make short form content. Everybody started to make TikToks. Everybody started to come up with dance routines for their songs. I didn't even come up with a dance routine for Love Nwantiti myself. Like, it was people that did that for me. But basically, it's just what it was. But at first, in Nigeria, it was not regarded as the best thing after fried rice.
Yeah.
So for me, I just see it as what it is. It is what it is. And like I said, I am who I am and I am what I am, regardless of what part of the world resonates with it. So I'm an advocate of being authentic.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for being yourself. I'm an advocate for art. Like, I visit museums a lot. I don't know.
What do you go there for?
I go there to consume art. Like, one of the first times I was in Paris, I went to the Louvre. I just wanted to go there. I had one of my friends. So I was like, I want to go to the Louvre. And she took me to the Louvre. And we basically, we walked through the Louvre. It was a very big place, Many people know the Louvre for the Mona Lisa, which is one of the most famous art pieces there. But there's so much more. There's a literal mummy in the Louvre, a real mummy from Egypt.
Yeah.
I don't even know how it got there.
Well, you know how it got.
We know how it got there. But there's so many things, so many pieces of art from 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, and it's there. And you have crowds of people buying tickets every day to go to the Louvre to just consume art. Why do you think something that was designed 4,000 years ago would be of interest to people today? It means they just saw that thing. If it's a sculpture or it's a painting, it means people saw that thing and it's evoked an emotion out of them. Like, maybe let's say it's a sculpture of, let's even use the Mona Lisa, for instance. Why do people care about the Mona Lisa so much? Like, it's a painting of a woman who is not even alive today.
Yeah.
The person who even painted it is not alive either, but people just consume it because it is art. You can tell that the person that painted this felt something, and when you see the piece of art, it resonates within you and you are intrigued by it. So I'm an advocate for art. When I consume pieces of art, I consume the emotion and the experience of the artist that made it, and I appreciate it for what it is. If I see a Picasso painting or I see a Leonardo da Vinci painting, they're all different. The styles are different, but I appreciate it for what it is. So for me with music, it's the same thing. I feel music is art.
It is.
First things first. It's a product and all that stuff, and money is made from it, and that's fine. But for me, I see it as art first and foremost. Before it can be a product, it has to be art. It has to have a story. It has to have a reason for existing in the first place before you can put a price tag on it. When the Mona Lisa was painted, I'm sure it wasn't worth millions of dollars.
It wasn't even worth the paper it was on.
Exactly. But now it's worth millions of dollars because of the why. Why does it even exist? Do you know who painted this? This is Leonardo da Vinci. Is one of the greatest. All these things make it have the value it has.
Yeah.
But then, if you do your digging, most of the time, when these pieces of art were created, they were either overlooked or underappreciated. And that's fine, but it doesn't negate the reality of what it is. The Mona Lisa is still the Mona Lisa today, regardless of how the people who felt it felt. They are not even alive, by the way. But it is what it is. So it's kind of like the same way I see art.
Yeah.
And music, yeah.
And, interesting you're talking about this, because recently I woke up one morning to see the news that they've just discovered unreleased Mozart.
Oh, really?
In the library in Germany. Unreleased ever. I'm like, wake up, babe. New Mozart just dropped.
Crazy. In 2020.
Wake up, new Mozart just dropped.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Some music he wrote around this time, and they abandoned it because it just ended up in an obscure library in Germany. And so now they're just going through it, and they've discovered that this is Wolf Amadeus Mozart. This is who he is. And now that unreleased music now has a lot more value.
Oh, of course.
Than it had when in 1746 or something, when Mozart was busy just creating.
Just vibing, man.
Just vibing, exactly.
Bro was vibing. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. And at this point, you have emotions. At this point, what's more important? What's more important to you in all of this? I know the things that were important to you when you started. When you were in, was it Surulere?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were in Surulere. When you were in Surulere, then trying to make way, when you finally got local attention, global success. And now I like to believe the things that are important to you right now had changed at each level.
Yeah.
At this stage now, what's more important to you navigating this life of creation and impact?
I'd say what's most important to me right now is the art of it all. You know? I'd say back when I was in Surulere is the first place I lived in Lagos, by the way. So when I was in Surulere, at that point, I just came from Kaduna. I just came into Lagos fresh, you know. From very humble backgrounds, you know. My parents were not rich. They were not poor either, you know. I grew up in a relatively comfortable home. My dad, a doctor and a musician, but for free. My dad believed in music as service to God. He played in the church. He was a choir master in church, and he blessed people with the gift of music for free as an act of service. And he still does till today, by the way. So me coming from that situation, I saw music as much as it was art, I also saw it as an escape too, or as a way of making a living or making something of myself. Like, you know, me dropping out of university after the first year, you know, in a climate like Nigeria, I'm like, this is my way out of the hood, basically. But then I find myself in a position now where I'm like, I don't really see music as a way out of the hood or whatever.
You're out of the hood.
I mean, it depends. Am I really out of the hood?
Yes, you are.
I think I'm still in the hood. But obviously, it depends on how you look at it. But how I see it is, what is the hood in the first place? The hood is reality.
Yeah.
The hood is not really a place, in my opinion. I think the hood is reality. At the end of the day, in Nigeria, everybody is in the hood. Like,
we're in the lungu.
We're in the lungu, regardless of whether you're in a posh part of the lungu or not, you're still in the lungu. So, like, what is the hood? The hood is reality. I see my music as an expression of my reality and the reality I find myself in. The pleasant realities, the unpleasant realities, for the sake of art. Every painting does not have to be beautiful. Some paintings do not represent beautiful things. Some paintings represent harsh realities. They represent sad things. They represent, you know, negative. There are some paintings that are paintings of war.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a painting of when Napoleon's
That's the
armies,
Waterloo.
Yeah, we're fighting these other armies. And it's a painting. That's not a Mona Lisa right there. That's a painting of war.
Yeah, the Battle of Waterloo.
Yeah, so you ask yourself, does every painting have to be a Mona Lisa? Does every painting have to be a Waterloo? What if every artist was just free to express the reality they were experiencing and, you know, let that reality stand the test of time? If 10 years from now, the Waterloo is important enough, it will stand the test of time. If the Mona Lisa is important enough 10 years from now, it will stand the test of time. Fela Kuti's music has stood the test of time because the realities of what he was talking about still hold true today. I was watching a Fela interview a couple of days ago, and it was just so crazy to me because everything he was saying has not changed. Like, it was almost as if that interview was done today he'll be saying the same thing and the realities would be the same. He was talking about, the state of Africa and, African politicians and all that. And if you check it, has anything really changed?
No.
Not really, Everything is literally still the same. And that's why the music is so powerful. That's why it's so impactful. For me, I do not make music about the government. That's not my choice. I believe my life is ruled by a certain wave of realities that I feel are more profound to me than the government and what the government is doing. I think the government is doing what they're doing, but for me, I don't think it's necessarily my job to tell you what you already know the government is doing. Like, I don't need to tell you that the roads are bad because you know the roads are bad. You can see that for yourself. But I can tell you about the girl I was talking to last night. I can tell you about my last relationship. I can tell you about how in love I was. I can tell you about how I fell out of love. I think those realities are more profound to me. I can also tell you a bit of my experience as a Nigerian with love and other things. Like, me telling you about, like in CKay the First, in a song called Kalakuta, I was talking about how police stopped me and searched me and they didn't see nothing. But then they asked me to give them something. It's ironic because you do that if they saw something, right? But they saw nothing and they're still asking. That was one line where I was just talking about an everyday Nigerian experience. But that's not all I talk about. True. I talk about a bunch of other realities. So that's just what it is, man. I feel every musician has their reality. And mine is mostly about love and the stuff I experience on a day-to-day. But I do not make music about politics. I am not Fela Kuti. Yeah. There can only be one Fela Kuti. And there can only be one CKay, who was born in the time he was born in Kaduna, amongst the people he was born amongst and the experiences he experienced.
Yeah, I think they both, I think they both sit along the same spectrum, and that is a representation of the human experience and all the forces impacting that experience. So sometimes it's love, sometimes it's the government, sometimes it's the dysfunction within which you have found yourself in, whether you put yourself there or by birth you were born into dysfunction. It's, if you express that dysfunction, it's a true representation of your humanity.
True.
Yeah, so that's how I like to see it. So on one end of the spectrum, you're seeing someone go honing on, love, envy, greed, avarice, all of those things. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you're seeing some of the things that are more external, but they also impact that all the other emotions. Like I would feel, if I wasn't like a better man, I live in a country like Nigeria, and I see someone with more material possessions than I do have, you're more prone to be envious if you're not a better man, if you haven't nurtured yourself out of it, because I think it's a basic emotion. So you're more prone to envy. So someone could sing about envy as something, maybe my brother man stabbed me. Or on the other end, another person would sing about, the governance of the country sucks. But at the same time, you could find the thread to say, because this guy does not have enough, so he's more prone to this envy. It's still the same.
Yeah. For me, though, on emotions, I spoke about a range of things.
Yeah.
In addition to love, I feel love is a predominant theme of my life, but there are also other things that I experience, like betrayals, friendships going sour, difficulties in existing as a Nigerian. Like you said, as a Nigerian, you are born into dysfunction.
Yeah.
I have my fair share of dysfunction that I speak about in my music as well, but these are all like my range of emotions. I sing about love and all these things, but I also experience these other things. And like I said, I'm not, especially these days with more maturity and with more understanding of life. I just feel like I rather tell stories through my music than through tweets.
Yeah.
I tweet sometimes, but like there's a lot of things I would have tweeted before or taught. A lot of things I would have tweeted before that these days I would say, no, I'll just say that in a song instead of tweeting it. So I see my music as a diary entry.
So when you talk about things like all of the things that are, you know, love is expansive, but all of the things, betrayal also could be connected to love, especially when you love and lose. But then when I talk, because I think there's a time you've been doing some tweets about, sharing on Twitter, you tweeted about betrayal in a way where you're saying things like your brother might not be your brother, something along those lines. Along those lines. And when we talk about CKay, there's one part of your career that's always, it feels like a black hole of some sort. Nothing ever pops out of there. A lot of things get thrown into there and they never come out.
What's there?
Your time at CC.
No. Really, you think it's a black hole?
Yeah, I think so. Because you never really speak about it. I'm not like, I don't know if it's deliberate, I'm not in your head, but you never really speak about it. And because it's there and it's unaddressed, everybody imagines everything and throws it in there, and it stays in there and just continues to fester. And so even when you say things like, your brother might not be your brother, even within the game or something, there's always a link to that. People will be like, oh, he's talking about this time. He's talking about that time. Why don't you ever talk about that time?
I mean, I was signed to CC for like 4 years. Yeah. And I feel in those 4 years, I had interviews and I spoke about that time. I'm just in a different time now. And I'm speaking more about this time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's more of me just speaking about my present reality. I mean, obviously, CC was a stage in my life, a stage in my career. And yeah, CC did a bunch of good things and a bunch of not so good things, which is, I would say, normal in every relationship. There's nobody that is perfect. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too. I do good things and not so good things too. But I feel that's what being human is. And I feel at every stage you find yourself in, it's important to just accept that for what it is. And when your time in a place is up, you move to the next. That's basically how I see it. But I personally have love for everyone deep down, even if it's against my better judgment sometimes.
Yeah.
I will still always have love for everyone.
Yeah, because you're a better man than I am.
Because I just have so much love
to give.
Ouch. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your beautiful project. Before you arrived, I listened to it. Your people have inundated me with it. And so thank you so much I appreciate that you continue to go into parts of yourself and find the world worthy enough to share that with. Because it's a labor of love at the heart. Because you were doing it before 1 Naira came in.
Yes. And before there was a possibility
of 1 Naira coming in. True. It was just love for the beautiful game. Yeah. And so I appreciate that you continue to dig deep for us. I appreciate that you have this record. Emotions EP is out now.
Album.
Sorry. When you mention
LP.
When you mention CKay the first, it just stuck in my head. Yeah. So Emotions album is out now. You can find it everywhere on all the DSPs, Apple, Spotify, AudioMac, everywhere you listen to your music. I'm happy for what it is doing and what it will do. And
Me
so,
too.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, we're out.